Hi everyone, very good morning. So let's start this session. Myself, Ranjana Sahu from Alma Better team, and I'm here to present to you our masterclass on Master the Basics of Software Development, Object and Design Oriented Principles. In this masterclass, you will be learning about learn object oriented programming, design principles for modern software development, improving your problem solving skills. You will also get to apply object oriented programming, design principles for modern software
Run.
development, improving your problem solving skills, and abilities to create clean, efficient, and maintainable code. Yeah.
Your voice was struck. Yeah.
Okay. So, am I audible now? Can you please confirm?
Yes, yes. Now you're audible.
Okay. From where have you missed me?
You can start over. No issues. Yeah.
Okay. So, myself, Ranjana Sahu, and I'm from Alma Better team, and I'm here to present to you our masterclass on Master the Basics of Software Development, Object and Design Oriented Principles. So, in this masterclass, you will have a brief about object oriented programming and design principles for modern software development. And you will also get to apply OOPS principles to solve real coding challenges, improving your problem solving skills. You will get to enhance your coding abilities to create clean, efficient, and maintainable code. By this masterclass, we are looking forward to help you gain confidence in designing and implementing software projects with OOPS. So, about the speaker of the day of this session, I would like to introduce you to our esteemed instructor who is a senior software engineer at Microsoft, Mr. Neeraj Sharma, who will bring his technical expertise about this particular subject. And he is a full stack developer having 8+ years of experience in designing and developing distributed systems with experience in cloud, that is AWS, Azure, web development, microservices, event driven architecture, and many more. So I will now hand over the session to Neeraj, and I hope you have an amazing and stimulating learning experience throughout this session. Over to you, Avinash. Over to you, Neeraj.
Neeraj, your voice is not audible. Oh, try to mute or unmute yourself.
How about now? Is it better?
Yeah.
And you can see the screen as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Fine. Guys, let's start with the agenda which we are planning to have today, right? So essentially, the main thing which we want to do today is we want to understand how object-oriented programming works, right? And what we had before it. So before that, we had something called procedural programming. Now, what was procedural programming? And what is object oriented programming, how it is different than object oriented programming? Okay, what are the object oriented programming principles? Okay, so what all principles does it include? So we need to know all those principles so that we can apply those principles into our day-to-day programming, which we will be doing, right? We'll be talking about how OOPS works, right? So once you understand the principles of it, you essentially know how it works internally, right? And then we also will be talking about why OOP matters. Okay, you are learning something, but why are you learning it, right? What is the real essence of it? What is the usage of it and everything? So that is something we will be learning here. Okay. And then we will be talking about a little bit about the career opportunities which are there, right? And then we will be talking about some of the interview questions which could be asked a lot of times on object-oriented programming, right? And these are the questions which you mostly have in your fresher interviews, right? Like which are related to the object-oriented programming. So that's the agenda for today. Okay, and if at all you have anything you would like to ask me, you can just put it on the chat. So I'll be keep looking at the chat, and we'll try to make this session more interactive. If at all you have any questions, and if you would like to suggest anything there, you could just put it on the chat. I will be watching the chat while we'll be presenting this session. Okay. Cool. Fine. So first thing which we need to understand is the software development itself, right? Now, everything which is happening around you in a digital space is mostly the software development, right? Even the Zoom call which we are currently having, this involves a certain interface and everything. A software has been, included there. A software is something which you had installed in your system, correct? A Zoom, for example, the application for Zoom. Now that could be a different kind of applications. Consider even the Zoom. Zoom is something you are getting as an Android application. You are also getting it as a web application. So multiple forms of applications are being provided for a single application, right? And essentially what is happening, a software has been developed for it, right? And that is what the software development is mostly about, right? It is about you're trying to create a digital innovative solution, right? And that is where the entire software development comes into the picture. And within the software development, we have object-oriented programming as well. Okay. Now, if I talk about the main goal of object-oriented programming here, the principles actually allows the object-oriented principles actually allow us to build a structure, a certain flexibility and scalable system. Okay, this kind of help a developer to design their code in such a way that it is maintainable. Okay, when I say maintainable, it means it could be easily, like for example, when you are working in a company, right? You have created some software. Okay, and after that some other people will be coming and working into the same software, right? So you will be writing your code in such a way that other people will be able to understand that code easily, right? That provides the maintainability, because the other person is the one who will be maintaining your code, right? That is the idea behind it. Okay, let's talk about the procedural versus object-oriented programming. So what exactly is the difference between the procedural and the object-oriented programming, and what exactly was the procedural programming? Okay, so if I can tell you a little bit about the definition, a very vague definition about this one is a procedural programming essentially is a programming paradigms. Now, paradigms is essentially the way you write your program. Okay, that's what the paradigm essentially means. It allows you to structure code as a series of procedures. Okay, so you essentially define a lot of procedures. Okay, and those are step by step, you essentially execute them. So they have a certain step-by-step structure to them. Okay, and each function performs a specific task. Okay, so you define multiple procedures. A procedure is something, you call it as a function, you can call it as a routine, you can call it as a method. In different programming languages, you call them a different thing. Okay, but they do mean the same stuff. Okay, in a general sense, there are certain line of code which are blocked within a certain scope. Okay, so that is what we call it as a function, a method, a subroutine, a routine, or a procedure. Okay, so that is what we do. So we define multiple procedures. Okay, and each procedure will be performing a certain specific task. Okay, and also it relies on a global data. Okay, and the approach which it follows, it's top to down. That means you start from the top and then you go all the way to the down. And it emphasizes on the code reusability. Why? Because you have multiple procedures which you have already created, so you can use those procedures at any point of time. Okay, it is effective. It's not that it is not effective. It was effective. In fact, your C programming language is actually uses the this procedure programming style of coding, right? And you have like Pascal and whatever the programming languages which you had in the earlier era, they were using this programming technique, the programming with the procedural programming. Okay, but as your project grows, right, as you try to cater more demands, as you try to add more functionality to your product, okay, it becomes quite complex to maintain that thing, right? It is not manageable with the procedural programming, and that is where the object-oriented programming came into the existence. Okay, so it was sort of an extension over the procedural language, and it provided a better way of doing things. Okay, so if I can give you a very small example of how a usual procedural program could look like, so maybe I can just show you this example. Let's see like this. So here what we have done, we have created multiple procedures. Okay, when I say procedures, it could be called as a function, it could be called as a method, it could be called as a routine, it could be called as a subroutine, okay, depending on the programming language you are working with. Another thing, guys, in this session, we are not very much going to be talking specific to a programming language, for example, say Java, C#, okay. When we talk about object-oriented programming, that involves all the programming languages which uses object-oriented programming, right? For example, Java, C# and all. We will be talking about the principles of the programming language, okay, and the code which we will be writing, if at all we'll be writing any code to explain certain things, they are going to be more like a pseudo code, okay. What we will be trying to understand is the principle itself. Once we have the hang of the principles, how does it work and everything, then you can just pick up any programming language and you can apply that. Only changes happens in terms of syntaxes, right? Whatever the syntaxes you are using, that changes, but the very idea of it, the very essence of it stays the same, okay. So let's talk about the programming language, so not the programming language, the procedural programming way of doing things. So when we have considered this is a normal setup where you have a account, right? You could do some sort of a transaction sort of a program it is, okay? So it's like this. So you essentially keep a list of accounts with you, okay? And then we have multiple procedures to work on those accounts. For example, we have account function, again, functional procedure. This is one procedure which takes a name and balance. It puts a name and balance to the account data. Now, account is the main data which you are kind of keeping here. It is a global data which is available to all the procedures here. Okay, it's certain data which we are keeping. Okay, now if anybody needs to add an account, what they need to do, they just need to call this account function. Okay, they have to call this account function, give some data to it, and it will get added to the global data. Okay. And if I want to get a certain account detail, okay, what I could do, I could call this function, which is says get account. I have to pass my name, the account name, and what it will do, it will essentially search that account name in this account's data and will return me that particular account name. Okay. Then comes the deposit procedure. So if you would like to do a certain deposit, okay, you want to do a deposit on an account. So you will be selecting the account name. You will be passing account name and the amount you would like to deposit. Now, what we are doing here, we are doing the reusability of code. Why? If you want to deposit something, right, you will be depositing it to a certain account. I already have a procedure defined earlier how to get an account, right? So what I do within the deposit procedure, I use another procedure called get account. This will give me the account first. First, I will get the account. So by writing the procedural code, you do get the flexibility of reusing the code, right? You are reusing the code. You don't need to write this code again to find an account, right? You already have that piece of code available to you. You just make a call to it and you just get that data. So you have your account with you. Now, once you have your account with you, you can go and update the balance in it. Okay. So you can just increase the amount by which you want to do the deposit. So you have done a certain deposit that get added to your account balance. Perfect. Similarly, we have something called withdraw. Withdraw is again another procedure, function, or method, or a routine. And within that also we do the same thing. We are using, if you want to withdraw something, we want to withdraw from an account. First, I try to find the account. Again, I'm doing the reusability of the code. And then I update the account balance. In this case, I decrement it, right? And then we have, say, a final function here, which is for the transfer. When you say, I would like to pay from this account to this another account, okay? And you tell what is the payment amount you want to have, right? In here, we have to do a couple of things. So when we are moving some amount from one account to another account, we have to deduct amount from one account, and then we have to increment amount to that beneficiary amount, right? For example, if you are sending money from Google Pay, it is going from your account and going to the other account, right? So it is decrementing on your account and getting incremented on another account. So same thing. So again, we will be reusing our code here. We'll be defining get account. We first will get the payer's account. Okay. In this case, it might be your account. Okay. Then you withdraw from your account. Okay. Then you get the beneficiary account. This could be your friend's account. Okay. You get that account detail. Okay. And then you do a deposit. So what essentially we did in the transfer, we used again, whatever the procedures which we had defined earlier. Again, what is the procedure? A block of code, right? Which we could call again and again based on our convenience. And that is how we did this entire thing. Okay. So it is a set of steps which are being defined and it goes top to bottom. Okay. I hope everyone is clear on this. at least you got the idea about the procedure programming, what it is. Can you guys just put it on the chat? Yes, perfect. Thank you. So this is about your procedure programming. Now the challenge with the procedure programming you could consider, right? Consider this is like one file. Like that, what happens over the time, your code get increased a lot, right? Because when you write the code, you will be handling multiple functions. Today you are having this requirement, tomorrow you will have different requirement. A lot of code will get created. Over the time, what happens? A lot of modules get created. What is a module? A module, like consider this procedure.js could be a one module which is having certain code within it. Okay, like that, you have multiple codes which get created. Then it becomes quite difficult to manage that. Okay, and that is where the main problems start with the procedure programming. It is good. It is not that it is bad. It is being used for a very long period of time, right? A C language is an example of that. But once you start increasing the complexity, like once you start writing a lot of more code, you try to put more functionality into your code, it becomes a little bit tougher to manage the code. Okay, it becomes not that easy to work around with the code to add a new functionality and all that stuff. Okay, and on top of it, it doesn't really simplify our thinking in a way. The way we are writing the code and the way we see our world, right? The way we see the things around us is a little different. Okay, and that is where the idea of object-oriented programming came in. So the idea of object-oriented programming is writing our code or structuring our code in such a way that it could kind of be similar to the things which we see all around us. Okay, and that is what we call it as objects. So we see objects all around us and we want to write our program in such a way that it defines all those objects. Okay, and that is where the object-oriented programming came into the picture. You might be getting confused a little right now, like what is this object and all. Don't worry, just be with me and you will get an understanding of it, like what exactly it is, how does it work and everything. Okay, fine. Let's talk about the object-oriented programming per se. Okay, the idea of object-oriented programming is that we try to structure our software around the objects. Okay, and what usually happens, these objects we kind of consider as a real world entity, something which exists in a real world, right? For example, this pen could be something which exists in a real world. I exist in a real world, you guys exist in a real world, right? So we try to structure our program with some real world entities, right? What is an entity? An entity is something which exists. It's that simple. So if you guys have seen any horror movies or anything like that, the moment the priest come into the house, what does he say? He says, I can feel an entity. Okay, entity is something what? Which exists. The very idea of entity is which exists. Okay, that is what all it means. So I will be using these words like entities, object. Okay, so just trying to tell you what that means. Okay, and what we do, it's all around the objects, which are instances of the classes defining both attributes and behavior. So in object-oriented programming, we create something called classes. Okay, and these classes contains data and they also contain methods as in those functions. These data, we call it as an attributes. Okay, and then we have something called behavior, which we call it as a method. Okay, again, if you're not getting it right now in terms of programming, don't worry about it. We will be writing a small example about it and then you will get an understanding. Okay, and fine. And then when we talk about the OOPS, object-oriented programming principles, it specifically go towards 4 principles, which are the main important ones, which is called encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, and abstraction principles. Okay, so in order to claim that a programming language is actually an object-oriented programming language, it has to use all these principles. That means you should be able to write the code by using all these principles. Okay, that is what it means. We will be dealing with each principle, each point we will be dealing with in the coming few minutes. Okay, and as I said, object represent a real world entity. Okay, it simplifies the complex system and fosters the efficient, organized software design. Object is like fundamental approach, which I have said, everything is around the object. And if I talk about the programming languages which are using it, you could see C, C++, Python is there, C# is there. Any programming languages which says it is an object-oriented programming language will be using these principles. Okay, and most of your softwares which you nowadays creating, or the most of the programming languages which are in demand, right? They all are programming languages which are object-oriented programming languages. Okay, so that is why it is super important to know about object-oriented programming, because this is something which actually, like the job opportunities or whatever you have it out there in the market, it is mostly around the object-oriented programming. So you need to know about it. Okay, now if I can talk about this little specific differences which we have between the object-oriented programming and the procedural programming, right? As I said earlier, in the procedural programming, we follow a certain sequence of events, right? We define certain procedures and then we do the things. In case of object-oriented programming, we don't do that. We organize our code around the objects, okay? And then we work with the objects, okay? For example, if I can say, if I'm an object and you guys are objects, when we are communicating, the objects itself are communicating with each other, okay? And this other thing is the data handling, how we do the data handling. So data handling in procedural programming language is global. That means you define a global data, like I showed you earlier. If you see here, we define a global data and then all the functions are basically accessing that, okay? So we define a global data, and in case of object-oriented programming, we try to apply the principle of encapsulation here. Okay, as I said, there are certain principles of object-oriented programming. One of the principle is encapsulation. So we use encapsulation principle instead of just defining a global data. We have code reusability. Okay, we have a limited code reusability in case of our procedure programming language. So we have certain procedures which we could use. However, in object-oriented programming, we have a greater way of doing reusability of code. There are multiple ways that we could do code reusability. For example, inheritance is one of the principle. Again, we will be talking about it. Okay, complexity of handling the code, right? It is less suitable for complex tasks. So if your task is very complex, right? If you're doing a lot of conditions and everything like that in that sort of a program, it becomes a little hard to manage that within a procedural language. Okay. And that is where the object-oriented programming shines. Okay. Concept-wise, it focuses more on the procedure and how to do it. Okay. Object-oriented programming tries to model your work towards a real world entity. Okay. And the example, if I talk about, in your procedure programming language, it is C, Pascal. In your object-oriented programming, in procedural, it is C and Pascal. And in your OOPS, it is Java, C++, Python, C#, even JavaScript. Okay. Code maintenance, as I've already told you, it becomes a little challenging when you have a large code base. Okay. And it becomes a lot more easier with the object-oriented programming because you try to module it in such a way, it becomes a lot more easier. Okay. Fine. Why OOP matters? Because of all the benefits which I just told you about. Okay. Okay, that is something I guess Ranjana or like someone from the Alma Beta team can answer, whether the PPT and other things will get shared or not. Okay. Yeah, let's come back to the topic which you were talking about, the object-oriented programming. Why does it matter? So as I said, most of your projects which are being created, most of your applications which are being created nowadays, it is all object-oriented programming. Okay, it is using all object-oriented programming. And because of that, it matters a lot, right? The other thing is the way you are structuring in code, the flexibility which you are getting with the object-oriented programming, okay, that kind of help you to create an ecosystem of like the standards which kind of get used everywhere. Okay. And that is where your main object-oriented programming shines. And that is why everyone is essentially working towards the object-oriented programming. Okay. These are the certain principles which we will be talking about. We will be talking about each of these principles. Okay. Let's talk about how object-oriented programming works. That is the main theme of this entire session. So we are talking about something here called a class, object, data, and methods. Okay. Maybe let's talk about this thing in here. Okay, let's write a few things here and try to understand it. Let's take that same example which we had taken earlier. For example, this guy, right? We have defined an account, okay? And we had an account, all those details were there. This is something we did in procedural language. What if we want to do something similar to your object-oriented programming? So there are certain concepts in object-oriented programming which we need to be aware about it, okay, before getting into this thing. So first thing is called as a class, okay? One thing is called as an object and something is called as an attribute, okay? And then we have something called methods, okay? These are like certain things which we need to know. Now, what is a class? Class usually is being called, if at all you go anywhere and try to check the definition, right? What is a class? They usually call it as a blueprint. That means it defines some sort of a structure. Okay. What does this structure means? The structure means that once you have a structure, you can create a copies of it. Okay. For example, say you guys have seen a lot of flat around you, right? Buildings which is having multiple flats. What they do, they have a certain structure. They can create some sort of a blueprint. They can create some sort of an architecture that I will be having this room, that room. There will be a kitchen. There will be this and that. Once you have that architecture with you, you can create multiple number of flats. You can create second flat, third flat, and that will follow the exactly same structure. Correct? Because the structure has already been defined. And what you do now is you just create a copy of that. Correct? That is what your meaning of a blueprint is. Okay. So when we define a class, for example, if I need to create a class, in case we need to create a class, taking this example, the example which you were following earlier, just give me a second. Let me move this guy a little side here. The example which we were moving, this example, right? If I talk about an account, okay. So I can have something like a structure which says I am having a bank account. Okay. So this can define me a structure. So if I say, if I want to have a bank account, I would like to have certain things within it, right? For example, I would like to know the bank account holder name. Okay. So he'll be having a certain name. He will be having a certain address, correct? He will be having a certain mobile number, phone number, whatever is that. He will be having the account number itself, right? There will be an account number. Now, when we talk about these things, which an account, now again, when I say bank account, a bank account is something which exists in a real world, right? It does exist in a real world. For example, you guys might be having a bank account. I'm having a bank account. If you don't have, your parents will be having a bank account. So that is what we say. It's a real world entity. Right? It's something which exists in a real world. So if we have a bank account which exists in a real world, right? So I have taken the example of that. So we try to structure our code such a way that it kind of matches with the real world entity. So I have a bank account. Every bank account has certain name, mobile address, account number. Okay, it can have more details also, but let's take these details for an example. So it has name, address, mobile, and account number. Cool. These are the things which are actually being called as an attribute. Okay, they all signifies a data. So attributes are nothing but the data. Okay, and then your account can have some sort of functionalities also, right? That means you can withdraw. Now, withdraw does not significance a data, right? It is not something which is a data. It is more about a functionality that I would like to withdraw the amount, because when we withdraw an amount, multiple things happens. Okay, multiple things happens. So that is what the withdraw is. And similarly, we have something called deposit. Again, what is this? This is the functionality which this bank account can have. It is a behavior. Okay, and that is what we say is methods, okay, or behaviors. That defines your method, behaviors, or functions. Are you guys clear with this structure? What is a bank account? Bank account is a kind of an entity. Okay, I can call it as a class here. Then it contains certain data which can be considered as an attribute, and then it has a certain functionality which can be considered as a methods. Anyone has any doubt? I hope everyone is clear with it. You guys can just put it on the chat. Okay, thank you. Now we are clear, in a way, we are clear right now with what is a class. Class is kind of a structure, which I just told you that this is a structure. We are also clear with what is an attribute. We are also clear with what is the method. Now comes the main thing, okay, the hero of the movie, which is object. Now, what exactly is the object? Okay, now let's try to understand this. So I said that I have the structure being created. I have a structure which is being created for me. Now, by using this structure, I want to create the copies of it. Okay, or we can say we want to create real objects out of it. Okay, this is just a structure. Now I want to create the objects out of it. For example, I would like to have multiple accounts. For example, there can be a bank account for Neeraj. Okay, there's going to be a bank account for Neeraj. There could be a bank account for, say, I'll just put few names. I'll pick up few names from the chat. Say Vansh. Okay, and say Bhushan. Now they are all separate accounts, okay, but they will all follow what is being defined in the structure. That means they all will be having a name. For example, in my case, it's going to be Neeraj. They will all have a mobile name, right? Mobile number. they'll all have the address. They all will have the functionality to withdraw, right? They will all have the functionality to deposit. Now, whenever I will call a withdraw functionality or deposit functionality, that will get called on the object itself. So Neeraj is an object which exists. Okay. Vansh is an object which exists independently, right? Bhushan is an object which exists. Okay. But from where this object actually came, they actually came from this entity, right? They are in a way instances. We call them as a instances of this entity which we have created, and they each one will have their own data. Okay, each one will have their own data. Okay, and whatever the operation which we will be performing, for example, withdraw, deposit, or whatever it is, that will be specific to that particular object. I hope you guys got a little bit of idea around this, at least something. So maybe let's do one thing. Let's try to write a little bit of a code. Okay. We'll try to explain few things with the code and it will become a little more clear with this. So let's say if I'm just creating any code here, new file, I'll call it as class sample. Now, don't worry about the code. There could be a possibility that code which I'm writing is not exactly, because I'm just writing a code in C# or Java. Like I'm trying to explain you a topic, a concept. It will get easily applied with any other programming language. Okay. Only the syntaxes can go here and there. Okay. What we want to understand is what exactly a class is. Okay. What is an object? Once we understand the class and object, it doesn't matter which programming language you are using. The concept will still remain the same. Okay. So for example, I would like to create a class. Okay. So the same example, we will take the bank account stuff. So I can say I would like to create a class. Okay. I would like to create a class and I would like to name that class as a bank account. Okay. That is my class. So this is the structure which I'm trying to create here. Okay. And then I say that I would like to have a certain properties to it, right? Properties, attribute, or data. Okay. It will have data, like it will have a name. Okay. It will have something called name. It will have something called, it could have an age also. Okay. It can also have your mobile number. Mobile number can be another thing. It can also have something called an address. Okay. That is all what we have defined as a data. Now, what is this entire thing? These things can be called as, this is going to be the data for this particular entity. Okay. Age can be integer, obviously. So I can say data. We have defined this data. This is also an attribute. Okay. This can also be called as in properties. Okay. Again, I don't want to go to the specific of properties because properties varies based on the programming languages. For example, if I talk about C#, property is a little different in that case. Okay. I'm trying to tell you in general, don't go programming specific here. Okay. So these can also be called as a properties of that particular class, right? And then it will have certain functionalities to it. For example, it can have something like a function, like I'll say like a void function, and it does a withdraw. Okay. Now again, this is the functionality. What it does, it's gonna do something like, okay, I'll have something here. I'll say string, not a string, it's gonna be an integer. Okay, it can be account balance, that you are keeping an account balance. Okay. And if you say withdraw, so you essentially say the amount, right? How much amount is you would like to withdraw. That's something you say. So it could just simply say that I would like to change the account balance, whatever the account balance was there, I would like to change it to decrement it with the amount which I have got, right? Again, I'm not writing those code. For example, when you are withdrawing something, obviously you will be checking whether you have that much amount in your bank account or not, right? Then only you can perform that sort of a transaction. That I'm not want to get. I don't want to get into the detail of things. I just wanted to tell you the structure of the things. Okay. So we have tell the withdraw that I would like to do a withdraw, and say if I want to do a deposit. Okay. I would like to do a deposit, and I can just say the amount which I would like to deposit. Okay. So I'll just say the account balance will then change with whatever the account balance was there earlier. On top of it, I will be adding this amount. Okay. By doing this thing, we actually created this structure. Okay. Right now, this is just a structure. Okay. This is an entity. So some people will call it as an entity. Some people will call it as a type. Okay. And obviously the class. So these are the names which are actually used interchangeably, but they all mean the same stuff. When I say structure, when I talk about entity, when I talk about type, when I say class, that all means this structure which I have created. So right now, this just an structure, it doesn't really do anything. It just stays here. Okay. In order to do something with it, we have to do something called, we have to create objects. Okay. Or instances. Okay. Now this is a real world entity. That means in real world, we have bank accounts. Okay. Now we will be actually talking about specific bank accounts. Similarly, in real world, we have human beings, right? That is an entity. Now you, me are actually the objects of that entity. Okay. So same way. So I'll say I have a bank account, and then you talk about the real bank accounts, the real world entities which will be coming now, the real world instances of those things. For example, I would like to create a bank account for Neeraj. Okay, so I can say something like where. So this is for my bank account. Okay, and I will say something like new, and I'll say bank account, and we call it like this. Okay, and in this we also have something called a constructor. Okay, a class can have something called constructor. Okay, so I'll just have a constructor here. Okay, and I'll just say this will take certain amount in it. Okay, and this amount is gonna be the default amount which you keep with your start your account with. Okay, so this is something you can give it here. Now what is a constructor? Whenever, okay, again, there are a lot other ways that you can write constructor in other programming languages, but they always will mean the same stuff. A constructor is kind of a thing which is kind of a function which first time it gets called only once. It will get called only once, and it will get called when you create the objects, when you create the instances out of a class or out of a structure. So this is the time I'm creating a structure. I'm trying to create an instance out of the structure, which is Neeraj bank account is the account which I'm trying to create. And with the amount, for example, I'm starting it with the 100 rupees. Okay. So when I'm doing this new bank account, what this guy will do, this will actually call the constructor. Okay. It will call the constructor. And at that point of time, what will happen? The memory will get allocated for this particular instance, because what is happening when you're running a program. Okay. Again, Kamesh, don't worry about the var, void or integer and all. It could vary for different programming languages. Okay. So you can even say like this. It is just a bank account essentially. Okay. We don't need to focus more on this, that why the string is like S, why it is not capital, why integer is like this, why we are not writing integer in other programming language that I have seen it like an integer. Don't get into that aspect of things. Okay. Try to understand the concept. These things can vary from programming language to programming language. That is why I'm not focusing more on that. Okay. So for example, in other programming languages, we can talk it about where. Okay. Or maybe let's write it like this also. That also makes sense when we are trying to understand. What all I'm trying to tell you is we are trying to create an object. We are trying to create an object from this structure, from this class. Okay. So what I was telling, that whenever we call this thing, it calls a constructor. Whenever a new entity, new instance is getting created of an entity, you're essentially calling a constructor. A constructor get called, and this guy kind of allocates all the memory and everything for you behind the scene. Okay. So that means when I say Neeraj bank account, after that, if I would like to give any name to it, for example, what is going to be the name which I would like, now that I'm trying to fill the data for this particular thing, right? Then I can say what is going to be the name. Okay. What is going to be the mobile number? So that's going to be some mobile number. Okay. Something like that, like this. Okay. This is the information which I'm providing to this one object. Like that, I could also have another program, another object. For example, I'll say I would like to create a bank account for Nitish. Okay. Nitish bank account. And this is also going to be a new bank account with a certain value, for example, 200. Okay, and even he will have a name. Okay, he will have a name, and even this guy will have a mobile number. So some mobile number even he will have. Now they all are objects. So we have one object which is being created from this structure, another object created from this structure. So maybe let's talk about this thing in here one more time to better understand this structure, like what is happening behind the scene for us. Okay, I'll just put this, or maybe let me do one thing. Just give me a second. Just take this guy. I will take a screenshot of it and then we will talk about it. I'll take the screenshot of it and I'll put it here. So this is what we did, right? Let's see, put it here. Okay. Now, let's try to understand what all happened when we wrote this entire code. When we wrote this entire code, that means we created a structure called bank account. Done. After that, we want to create multiple objects from this bank account. When I say objects, those are the instances, the real world entities, right? So I want to do a bank account. So what will happen in this line? Consider this is your memory, your computer memory. So when you are running a program, it is running on the memory, right? It is allocating some memory. So this is the memory part of it. So when we say, I want to create one object here, this is my one object which I'm creating for Neeraj. So a one memory block will be given to this Neeraj. Right? That means all the details, for example, the name, the address, the mobile number, whatever is there will get allocated to one object. Similarly, when I created another object, what will happen? Another object will get created. Okay, this is for say Nitesh. Okay, it will have a name, it will have an address, it will have all the things. Now, when I say Neeraj bank account dot withdraw, that I would like to withdraw from Neeraj bank account, that will act upon this memory location. That means it will act upon this data. Okay. Similarly, when we say I would like to work on the Nitesh bank account, it will act upon this one. So they both exist. They both exist and they came from the same source. This was the source. Okay. But now they are both acting independently. Okay. So even though they came from the same source, okay, they just took the structure from someone, and now they are working in their own space. Okay. And they are working independently. I hope you guys understood the idea of classes. You understood the idea of data attributes. You understood the idea of methods, and you understood the idea of objects. What are the objects? Now you understood. Clear, everyone? Can I have some response on the chat? Yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And now if I ask you, right, consider I just took one example of bank account. Okay, that is one entity I thought. Can you guys just think of another entity? Can you guys just tell me, like, let's try to do so that we'll make sure that everyone understood this. Can you just give one example of some entity? Like, for example, you want to create any program. Say you want to do any application you would like to create. So Nayan, Nayan is asking what will be the problem if you do not create a specific object. So if you do not create the specific object, Nayan, you will not be able to interact with the things, right? For example, same thing. You have a bank account. You created a structure, but you will be having a lot of bank accounts. So for that, you have to create multiple objects because all the bank accounts will exist in the system, but independently, right? So I want to create the objects. So we have to create the objects out of the structure. That is what happens in the real world. See, what we are saying the object-oriented programming is, it's the real world entities, how the things happen in your real things, right? That is what, for example, Hitesh has taken good thing, right? He says university. Okay. Consider you are creating an entity, which is say university. Okay. This is your entity. Entity is class. I can write class and then I can write university, right? Like that. Now university will have multiple what attributes to it. Okay. You can have a name for that university. It will have an address, right? It can then have some sort of affiliated colleges, which it has. For example, you have, say, Uttarakhand Technical University, you have Uttar Pradesh Technical University, and within that you have multiple colleges, correct? Something like that can happen, right? And then you can have something like this, that I would like to do an admission to this college with this student, right? Like that, it can have multiple behaviors associated with it, correct? This is the structure. This is the structure which we have created. Now, what can be the university? What could be the real world objects out of it? It can be Uttarakhand Technical University, right? It can be your Uttar Pradesh University. It could be your Delhi University, right? Those are the real instances of this structure, correct? In this real world, we do have universities, correct? Now, which university? Each university is what? Is independent of other, right? When we talk about objects, objects are those independent things. Hitesh, does it make sense? For a university, can we have something like this? So we can have a structure and then we can have these things, right? And this is the thing which you need to understand. See, this is the thing which you need to wrap your head around. That means, how do you see the things in the real world, right? How you see the entities in the real world. And based on these entities, how do you see the objects? That is what you need to try to understand. Okay, that is all what you need to understand. That's all what is there to the programming language in terms of object-oriented programming. Again, there are certain principles which we will be talking about. But if you understand this thing, you will be able to model things. Okay, you will be able to write the classes. Once you're able to write the classes, it will be a way more easier for you to write your objects. Because what is an object? Object is actually a real instance of that particular structure. Okay, and this can apply to anything. For example, let's say this is something I have at my, like with me, right? It is a chewing gum. Okay, it's a mint chewing gum, something like that, and it is from some brand, Happy White. So what you can do, you can have a structure, okay, and then you can have some real. So this is a real world object in front of me, right? This is a real world object. It will have a certain properties, it will have a certain behavior and everything with it, right? And then I can have this as in one object. Then I can have another object. This can be another object. Like that, there can be orbit. Orbit could be another object. Like that, there could be multiple objects which get created. I hope everyone is clear with the idea of it. Okay, clear? Can I get some more yes on the chat, just to make sure that everyone got the idea? Yes, okay. And that is what we have talked about this even in this slide, that we create the classes, right? We create the classes. From those classes, that means we first create a structure, that this is going to be the structure. And based on that structure, then I create the real world things. Okay, let's take another example. Let's talk about flights. So you guys must be onboarding your flights like on a day-to-day, not day-to-day basis, but at least you must have went, right, in the flights. So you can say you have a flight, okay? And then you can have what is the real world entities of those. Like, for example, you can have like an Indigo flight, this flight, that flight, another flight, right? Those could be the entity, right? And within that, you can have a specific, it is like Boeing, this is actually the object, correct? Boeing, a special a certain aircraft is going to be the instance of the main aircraft. Okay, so maybe let's say like this. Again, I'm defining an entity. Okay, so one entity is the flight itself. Okay, in that it will have its name, it will have its model, right? Which is the aircraft, what is it? Okay, how many number of seats does it have? Okay, what is the engine type? Okay, what is what? All those information will be there, color and everything will be there. That is the structure which I have defined. Now, out of the structure, can I create the instances? The real world objects is going to be a real world object, a real world aircraft which exists, right? So it could be some Boeing, some X, I don't know the model number, but you get the idea. So one model number is XYZ, another model number is AE6. Then there is something called Airbus also we have, right? So we have Airbus A123, something like that. Those are the real things which are getting created. These are the real world objects which we have. And that is how we see the things. Now you tell me, don't you think what I told you about procedural programming and the object-oriented programming, Don't you see the difference? The way we are writing our code, the way we are defining our code, it is a lot more easier compared to this procedure. Compared to procedure language, object-oriented programming making more sense because it is all around us. We are actually able to relate with the code, right? And that's why your code becomes more readable. It becomes more understandable, right? I hope you got the idea. Just take one example. For example, Hitesh is working in one company and Hitesh has created a lot of code and he has written an application. And then say Nayan joined that company. Okay. And now Hitesh is telling him about the company. So about the product which he has worked on. So it will be a lot more easier for Hitesh to explain the project because he's using all real world entities and all those examples, whatever he has put into his code, that signifies some sort of a real entity in the world. And it becomes a lot more easier to explain the code. It becomes a lot more easier to write the code. It becomes a lot more easier to implement and maintain the code. Okay. I hope till now you got the main essence of the object-oriented programming and you guys agree that it does help. Do you feel the same here? Perfect. Okay. And that is what we say. So we have already talked about this stuff. Let's talk about this now. It's same thing. It talks about the real world entities. Okay. When we talk about object-oriented programming, it is all about the concept of objects, which we have already discussed, right? What it is. Because of that, what happens? The software which you create, it becomes more intuitive. Okay. It becomes more adaptable and maintainable. Again, whatever we talked about it, the same thing has been written here. Okay. In order to do this thing, right, we actually provide, okay, so there is this thing. I think in this airline case, as an entity procedure will be creating only one aircraft in beyond creating. Correct. It will be something like that. You'll be creating multiple things and then you'll be working on it. Or you will be creating one central data. Okay. And then you will be working on that one data. That can also be a thing, Hitesh. Like just think like this, right? Even in this case, we created an account data, right? And then we worked on that account data, which had a mix of all the account data, right? It did not have a independent data and everything like that, more structured way. It did not have that sort of a structure. Now, when we work with the object-oriented programming, there are certain principles which are being involved. So we have to follow those principles in order to create a very maintainable sort of a code. Okay. And those principles are your encapsulation. Okay. These are the 4 pillars also people call it 4 pillars of object-oriented programming: encapsulation, abstraction, polymorphism, inheritance. Okay. These are the 4 ones which you need to understand. And then we have something called class and object, which we have already talked. These are not the principles. They are within this itself. They are coming. Okay. Now we will be talking about individual one. What is encapsulation? Okay, let's try to understand the encapsulation. Actually, we have implemented the encapsulation here. Even though I did not tell you about it, but we have already applied encapsulation in the code which we written. Okay. So when we define a class, okay, what we are doing, we are encapsulating. Okay. We are wrapping all the things within a single structure, right? What is a capsule? If you have seen a capsule, like a capsule, it contains the things, right? We are encapsulating things. We are wrapping everything within a certain thing. So here, what we are trying to do, we are actually applying the encapsulation principle of our programming language, not the programming language, object-oriented programming, right? We created a class which itself says we are applying a encapsulation principle. Okay, that is one thing. That I have put all the things which are related together. That is one thing. The other principle, the other thing which comes up in your encapsulation is about who can access what. Okay, who can access what? For example, you may have certain things in your class which you don't want other people to access. Right now, when I created the object, I could access the name, mobile number, and all that stuff, right? Maybe there could be certain things which you don't want to be accessed. For example, just an example, like here, we can have like a name, some account name, like who created your bank account. I'm just giving one example. Okay, so this could be some person who created your bank account. Okay, now this is the data you don't want other people to access. Okay, why? For what? Because this is something which is internal to this account number, like who created this bank account number, like the bank employee, something like that. And that is not something you want to be accessed by other people. Okay, however, you do use this who created this bank account in the system in somewhere, but you don't want other people to access it. Okay, in that case, what you do in encapsulation, you can add some sort of access modifier. That means who can access or who cannot access. Okay, so something like this you could do when you can say like something as a private. Okay, again, it changes from programming language to programming language, but the idea of encapsulation is first you are encapsulating everything within a class. Okay, once you have encapsulated everything within a class, what you want to do now is you would like to add some sort of access to it. That means who can access what, and that is where you add something called access modifier. Okay, and you have multiple access modifier based on the programming language. If you're working with Java, you will have a maybe one or two extra or less access modifier. If you're working with C#, there could be one or two extra or less modifiers, but the idea still remains the same. So you can say that account balance is something which I want public. That means everyone can access this. Address is something I don't want everyone to access it. Access it. It is private to me. Okay. So like this, you can define the encapsulation. Does it make sense about the encapsulation? Encapsulation is about hiding the data. You are hiding the data from the people or other objects around it, right? You are hiding the data. So for example, got the idea, everyone? What is encapsulation? Encapsulation essentially means hiding the data, right? And how do we implement encapsulation? You first thing is the class, the wrapping of the data itself. You have a class that defines your encapsulation, and then your data members. On that, what you can do, sorry. On that, what you can do, you can apply access modifiers. Okay. Usually the access modifier, which most of the programming languages have, is like public, private, protected. Okay. Something like that. We don't want to get into the specifics of the access modifiers because here we are not really teaching you about the access modifier. We are trying to tell you about the encapsulation principle. Okay. So you got the understanding of the encapsulation principle. Perfect. Let's talk about the abstraction. Now, abstraction is the most misunderstood. Okay. So many times when you read the definition out there in the your textbooks and everywhere else, it says encapsulation is about hiding the data. Correct. And then it says abstraction is about showing only the relevant information. Correct. So that is what you must have seen, correct? If anybody has read about it in college or somewhere else. So this is what you must have read about the abstraction. Well, it is some ways yes and no. Okay. So we will try to understand the abstraction in its real essence, the real meaning of abstraction. And I will give you one example. And with that, I hope you will get a very good understanding of the abstraction. So again, the idea of abstraction is that you would, so for example, let's take a super simple example. When you are doing some sort of a payment, okay, so you went to a website and you want to do the payment. Okay, what you want to do for that website is just the payment. Okay, and what matters to that particular website is that you do the payment so that money should get deducted from the system. Okay, whatever that system might be. It could be a credit card, it could be your internet banking, it could be anything, UPI or whatever it is. That is not what that website is concerned with. It is concerned with the payment. Okay. Once the payment is done, it can say things are done. You can have this particular product. Okay. Now, in this case, what is happening? Okay. We are showing only the things which are important. What is the thing which is important? The thing which is important is the payment. How that payment is happening is not important. Okay. So in a way, that payment thing which is happening, right? It doesn't need to know what you are selecting, how you are doing the payment and everything. Okay. In a way, This caller, this one which is actually asking you to do the payment, right? It is abstracted. Okay, the real way of doing the payment is abstracted from this thing. Okay, let's maybe try to. Did you guys understand a little bit? At least some idea you got it? Or obviously we will be writing. I just wanted to know how much did you understand when I talked about this example? Okay, some people got it. Okay, cool. But other people who did not get it, don't worry about it. The moment we will write the abstraction example, it will become super clear. Okay, let's create a new file and I'll call it as my abstraction example.cs. Okay. Now just consider that I already have created few classes. I'm not going to be creating one, but let's say we already have the classes being created. Okay. So for example, I have a Visa card. Okay. This is a class, which is a Visa card class. And similarly, I also have a Mastercard. Okay. This is a Mastercard. Similarly, I have a UPI payment option. Okay, this is my UPI payment option. This is my net banking payment option. Okay, there are multiple options, multiple ways of doing things. Now, what I want to do is I would like to define a functionality. Okay, like consider this as a function. Okay, which says void do the payment. Okay, and in here, suppose we are writing the code right like this way. That means I say I will be using a Visa card. I will be using a Visa card. I'll just call it as a card equals to say new Visa card. Again, when I'm creating a Visa card, it's an entity. And the card which is being created, that could be a specific credit card of Neeraj. It could be a credit card of Hitesh based on the details which we will be providing, correct? The card itself is the object or the instance. So I created this, and within the card, I have this functionality of doing payment. Okay. And we basically check here something like this. We say Boolean is successful. Okay. Again, the code which I'm writing here, it is all pseudo code. Okay. If it doesn't work, obviously it will not work for you. This is not programming specific code. It is just for your understanding, which I'm doing here. So if the card payment is successful, we can check, we can maybe say something like this. If is successful, we can say something like a print, and I can say payment done. Okay. Else we can say payment failed. Okay. This is what we see. Okay, that's all what we did. This is good. This code works. There is no problem with it. Okay, the way we have written is good. But there is one problem in this. Okay. Bhushan, I will not be going into the abstract class and methods because that is specific to programming language. Okay, what I'm trying to tell here you is more about the abstraction principle in itself. Okay, once you understand the abstraction principle, it will become a lot more easier to understand abstract class. Maybe I'll see, I'll try to, we are again, abstract class and methods and all, which is specific to Java, right? So that is why I don't want to get into it. I'll see what we can do about it. Okay. No, UPI method, I mean, correct. You say it as a method, but again, who is providing? So it could be a Google Pay UPI, right? I'll just maybe call it as like this, Google Pay UPI way. Okay. This can be a entity then, right? Then which is using internally the UPI method or something like that. We can call it like that. Okay. So this looks good. There is no problem, but there is one problem with this code. Okay. The problem with this code right now is the payment which I'm doing. The payment which I'm doing, it is aware. Okay. It knows that the payment is actually being done by the Visa card. The payment is actually being done by the Visa card. Correct. But what ideally should happen, right? This payment should be this information that who is doing the payment. That means what is the medium of doing payment should be abstracted. The way of doing the payment should be abstracted. That is what should happen ideally. Okay. But here the problem is that this guy knows this is some extra information which this guy is getting. The payment method is getting some extra information. and it itself is constructing this information that Visa card payment has to be done. Okay, so this Visa card or the payment information is not abstracted from this payment. How do I make it abstracted in a way? Okay, that is where something like this I could do. I can use something called an interface or abstract class in programming languages. Okay, what is an interface? Interface is a contract which says this class will definitely have this thing. For example, what I'm saying, I am having some interface here. Okay, some interface, I'll call it as a payment interface. Payment interface. That means all these Visa card, these guys will use a payment interface. Okay, just take it like that. They all have payment interface. Okay, now because they have a payment interface, they all will contain, say, a payment method. They all will contain a payment method. So instead of doing the payment like this way, we could have done the payment in this other way. So I could say something like, it will take a payment interface. Okay. Okay. Payment. And it will just use the payment interface to do the, instead of calling the card, it will just use the payment interface. I'll just call it as a payment interface. Now, this functionality is completely abstracted from the payment method. Now, payment method doesn't know how the payment is being done. It knows that payment is being done, but how it is being done, that it doesn't know. How? Because I can call this payment function by Visa card also. Okay, I can call this by Mastercard also. I can call it by using Google UPI also. I can call it by using net banking also, right? And all these classes, all these payment methods have this function called payment. So everyone will work. Did you guys get an idea about abstraction? How did we abstracted the information? Now the payment function is only concerned about the function, the thing which is being shown, which is payment. That's it. It doesn't know who, through which the payment is actually being done. Is it being done through the UPI? Is it being done through the Mastercard? Is it being done through the Visa? We don't know about it, correct? It is like assigning a variable. Payment mode is a variable here. Payment mode, yep, it's in a way, yes. Did you guys understood it or got more confused? I can explain it again. It could be a little difficult to grasp it. Can you put it on the chat? Okay, so maybe you got confused because of the way I have written this pseudo code. Maybe let me do one thing. I will write it in a different way. Okay, so let's say that you actually have the class. Okay, let's call it as a Visa card. So this is my class. Okay, it has a multiple things. It has a name, like what is the Visa card name. It has a number. What is the number? Okay, then you will get it. Okay, okay, and then it has a certain way. Okay, now what I'm going to be doing, I will be using something called an interface. Okay, I will be using something called an interface. I'll call it as a payment interface. Now, what does payment interface does? It just defines what all things somebody should have. Okay, what all things somebody should have. So I can say something like this, that it will have a Boolean payment method. That's all what it says. And all the classes who will be using this interface should have this payment method with it. So I can say that I'm using my payment interface here. Because I'm using my payment interface, again, do not get confused. In Java, we say implement. I'm not using implement. Okay, but you get the idea that this class is implementing an interface. Now, because it is implementing an interface, that means it is binding itself to a contract. Okay, it is binding itself to a contract that I will have a payment method. So even this guy will have a payment method with it. Okay, so it can have like the same thing, payment method, and in here it will do the payment. Okay, will do the payment in Visa card way, like whatever the way Visa card do the payment, it will do the payment in the way of Visa card. Okay, similarly we have say another way of payment also. Okay, and this is say your net banking. Even net banking has a name, number, and whatever it is, okay, account it is also using the payment interface. So even this guy will have a way of doing the payment, but in the way of net banking. Okay, why it is having the payment function? Because it is having this contract that I am going to be having this. Okay, like this, you have these two classes which are doing the payment and everything. Okay, clear? Now just think of a way that you have another function out there, okay, which is doing the payment not by this, okay, or maybe doing the payment this way. Okay, what it does, it creates a Visa card, okay, and it creates the card, okay, and then use the card and then do the payment. Okay, so what is happening is it is trying to create the payment by itself. That means this payment function knows, okay, that it has to create a Visa card and then it has to do the payment. It has to do the payment, correct? And this is the information. See, it is doing too much. That means it knows that if somebody wants to do the payment, a Visa card is required. Okay, this information is not abstracted from this payment function. This information is not abstracted from the function that if you want to do a payment, you will be doing a Visa card. What if we change our code a little bit and we say, whatever is having a payment interface, can do the payment. Now, this payment function doesn't need to know whether it was a Visa card who did the payment, whether it was a net banking who did the payment, right? It doesn't matter, because whoever is having the payment function will be able to do the payment. Now, this payment function, if we are calling, we can always call it with the Visa card, okay, or we can call it with net banking, or we can call it with something else. So in that case, what happens? We are showing only the information which is relevant. That means the relevant information is that you have to do payment. What is the detail behind it? The detail behind it is the code. One thing, that the code which we have written, that this guy doesn't know about. Second thing, it doesn't even know whether it was net banking who did the payment, or whether it was Visa card who did the payment, or maybe say other way of doing the payment. So that information got abstracted. That information got abstracted from this payment function. I hope now you must have understood the idea of abstraction, how we are showing only the things which is important and how we are abstracting all other details. Make sense? Can I have some yes, no from the chat? So by using this way, we have more way to do payment. Yes, more way of doing the payment. And the main idea, Nayan, here is about the abstraction. That means this thing doesn't need to change, right? Tomorrow you are going to be making payment, say right now you created a website, okay, and that supports only Visa card and Mastercard, okay, and if you would be writing that code within this, and tomorrow if you bring net banking, then again you have to make a code change here, correct? You have to make a code change here, but now you don't need to. So if you change from Visa card to net banking, you just need to call this function with the net banking and automatically everything will be taken care, because the information of doing the payment is actually abstracted from this payment. So whatever happens outside does not impact this function now, because that information is abstracted from it. Now, Nayan, did you get an idea how we have abstracted that information from it? I hope everyone is clear with the abstract. Right? We can also use abstract class to do this thing. Okay. Fine. So that is more about our abstraction. Okay. Interface is a keyword, right? Yes, it is a keyword. Okay, then comes the other one, other principles. So far we have talked about two principles. One is encapsulation. What does encapsulation do? It essentially encapsulates the things, wrap the things, access modifiers, all that thing is encapsulation. Abstraction, showing only the relevant information out there. Correct? Writing the code against an abstraction. That is abstraction. Then comes the inheritance. This is the third principle. The inheritance says that if something is already out there, can we use that? Okay, it kind of provides the reusability of your code. Okay, for example, it kind of extend the behavior. So for example, you already have an animal out there. Okay, you have an animal entity, okay, which has a certain structure to it. That means you have a color to it, you have a get color, you have a set color, you have a different functionality added to an animal entity. Can you use that entity to extend the other entity? Can you use that entity to extend the other entity? For example, I have a main entity called animal. Okay. Now I can have different type of animals. Okay. I can have a dog, I can have a lion, I can have a cat. Okay. So they will definitely have these properties which is already been defined. They will have these property which is already been defined. So that is something I can take it from the animal, and on top of it, I can add another functionality, which is called bark. So what we did, we essentially reuse the code. And in this way, what we are essentially doing, we are establishing a relationship between the entities. What is that? There is an animal entity, there is a dog entity, there is a lion entity. Again, what is an entity? Which exists in the real world, right? That means dog is a, so there is a relationship which comes up, which is called is a relationship. Is a relationship. That means dog is an animal, lion is an animal. Okay, somebody which is a relationship can get some things out of it. Okay, like a parent-child relationship. Exactly, Naya. Your father, your mother, and then you are. Okay, you are is in a relationship with your parents. That means you get some characteristics from your parents. Okay, and then you have your own characteristics as well. So you took some and then you extended some. Correct? So if we can write the same thing in the code, let's try to understand it via the code, then it will make a little more sense. New .cs. So we are talking about the inheritance now. We are inheriting from something. Okay, and that is how in a object-oriented programming language we kind of do the code reusability. Okay, I will use the same this animal thing, okay, which is the example which has been given. So I can say something like we have a class, or maybe let's not do that. I don't want to give this example of dog, cat and all, because this is something you have already read in your textbooks. I don't want to give that. Maybe let's think of some other example. Let's say in a real world, we have something called a bank. We have something called a bank. A bank is an entity, right? So it has a name. Okay. It has something called branch, right? It can contain branch, not the branch. Maybe I'll say it has something like what country, maybe from which country, because every country has their own banking system, right? So country like that, consider. Okay, this is like this thing. Okay, and then they have like a standard procedure of adding branches, because you could have multiple branches which could be added, right? So for example, I could have void add branch, right? This is something kind of a method which you could have. Okay, I'm not writing things here, but just think that you have few things here. Okay, and maybe let's have a string array of branch. So you have certain branches here. Okay, something like that. So this is your real world entity, like a bank. But by using this entity, can you create multiple more entities? Yes, we can create multiple more entities, right? For example, we can have a bank which is actually HDFC Bank. Okay, and HDFC Bank is a bank HDFC is a bank, is a relationship. HDFC is a relationship with this bank. So maybe it can extend this information. It can take this information from there, right? It can take these properties, name, country, branch, and all that stuff, right? You can have then other thing also. You can have a class which is say Kotak Bank, okay? And then it is also a bank which will have the all information. With this is like a real world example, okay? Now let's come back to the same example which we had earlier. Now, because you have this real world example also, let's talk about this animal wala example, because most of the times you have read about these examples. So now I guess you will get a lot more better understanding of that example. So let's say we have a class which says we have something called an animal. Okay. The same example of animal. Okay. An animal will have something called could have a color. Okay. It may or may not have fur, right? I mean, it could be a furry animal or it could be not, right? Like a bear or something like that. In that way, I'm saying. Okay. And then it has a way of say, what all did we give there? We have given like a eat, right? There is everyone will do some sort of an eating. So they will have a behavior that they eat, right? This is one thing which all the animals will have. Similarly, the bank example which I give, every bank will have a name, every bank will have this thing, every bank will have that other thing, right? Whatever is there, that you can put it into the main entity. Okay. From that main entity, you can inherit that information out. Okay. So now if I talk about class dog, now dog inherits from the animal. The moment it does this inheritance, it is able to access all that information. That means even dog will have this eat function. Even the dog will have that color. Even the dog will have that fur. Okay. And on top of it, you can add your more functionality. For example, a dog also bark. So that will be specific to a what? To a dog. Similarly, you can also have something like a lion. Okay. Lion is also an animal, but instead of lion barking, he does what? He roars. Okay. And again, it does eat, it does have a fur, it does have a color, right? That is the information which you can keep it within a line. So when I'm creating an object of lion, right? For example, if I'm creating where lion equals to new lion, right? I automatically have this functionality. The color itself is being given to me. So even though I did not add that color in the lion, the property, that data, that attribute is actually being coming from the animal. Okay, because lion is a animal, so it will inherit all those properties. So the color will be say brown, okay, or golden or something like that. And again, on top of it, it will also have this roar property, roar method. Sorry, it will have this roar method. So I hope you understood how we are able to extend the code by using this way of doing coding in inheritance. So inheritance is something which allows us to use the reusability of code by establishing is a relationship with the things. Clear? Everyone? Anyone has any doubt on this? Can I have few yes or no on the chat? Clear? Is a relationship. That means when we talk about inheritance, it's going to be is a relationship. Okay. Okay, this is another principle which we have. Okay, now let's talk about the last principle which we have is polymorphism. Okay, the idea of polymorphism is that it enables an object to have one behavior which can, Arya says, can you repeat the inheritance? Okay, Arya, super simple. When we talk about inheritance, again, when we are talking in real world, you have some characteristics of your parents, right? And then you have your own characteristics. That means you have one entity available and you yourself is another entity. You are borrowing few things from there, correct? Same concept can be applied to your programming language. That means you already have some entity which has certain information available to it, okay? And you want to use that information. Along with that, you would like to add your own information, right? Similarly, you have an animal which is having a color, fur, or certain behavior called eat. Take a real world example, bank. There could be something called bank. Bank has a name, bank has a branch, bank has certain things in it, right? Similarly, you can create a dog out of an animal. That means a dog is an animal. It will have its own functionality. That means it can bark. On top of it, whatever was being defined earlier, that also this dog has it. Similarly, the example which I had given you about the bank, you have a bank which is having certain properties and data to it. On top of it, you can create another bank, which is HDFC Bank, because it is also a bank. It can extend this bank. It is also is a relationship with that bank. It can also have these things earlier, whatever was being defined in the base entity, and the same thing it can use and extend and add more things to it. Okay, that is what inheritance means. That means you are reusing the things which are already been defined. Is it clear, Arya? Can you just say yes or no in the chat? Maybe I can then accordingly move. Sir, will you cover topics regarding software development? No, software development, no. Specifically, we'll not be talking about the software development. We are going to be talking about the object-oriented programming only in this. Okay, so we are clear with the inheritance concept. Okay, let's talk about the polymorphism in here. The idea of polymorphism is that to an object, we want to have a functionality, but based on the input, we want that functionality to behave a little different. Okay, it can behave differently. Okay, that is what the polymorphism says, that it responds to the same method of message in a way specific to the type. Okay, that means same thing can do a multiple things. Okay, in polymorphism is like poly, like multiple, right? Comes from two forms. One is compile time and one is runtime. One is called method overloading and the other one is method overriding. Okay, we will try to understand the polymorphism with an example. Let's say a new file, I'll call it as a polymorphism.cs. So first, two types of polymorphism we are having. One is called compile time. Sorry, compile time. That means when we are compiling our code, the polymorphism can be applied. So let's say I have a class, okay, and I'll call it as circle. Okay, like it's a circle class which draws the circles for me. Okay, and it has multiple functionality of drawing the circles. For example, I can say draw. So this is a functionality that draw a circle. Okay, when it does the draw circle, it does a default circle drawing. Okay, it does a default circle drawing. Then there is another way that we can draw. That means I can pass the radius to it. By passing the radius, it does the drawing. Okay, by using the radius, it does the drawing. Okay, I can maybe also give something called another draw, which is uses diameter. By using diameter, it does a draw. Okay, now every time I'm actually using the same functionality, which is what draw, but it can work differently based on the input which is being given. So for example, if I create the object of the circle, okay, I'll call it as a circle equals to new circle. Okay, I'm creating a new circle object. Okay, and with this, if I give this circle, okay, sorry, this will not work because the parameter is not same. Parameter is different. It needs to be different. Okay, so this will not work. So I'll say circle dot, and even it will not make sense. Diameter and radius, its diameter is just twice of it, right? So it doesn't matter. So circle is like I say draw. So even here I'm saying I would like to do a draw functionality. Okay, even here I'm saying the draw functionality, but with a value like a 5. Okay, same functionality I'm using. That means the functions are the same, the behavior is the same, but the way it is being working is different based on the input which is being given to these functions. Okay, the input has to be different, and that is what we call it as method overloading. Okay, the compile time is actually called as method overloading. We are overloading a method. Okay. Here I'm using draw function, which will call this guy. That means this code, whatever we will be writing here, will get executed. When we call this draw with a value, this code will get executed. Okay. Same method, different parameter, different functionality. Okay. Clear with this thing of method overloading in polymorphism? Yes. This is called something as a compile time polymorphism. What does compile time means? Compile time means that means while writing the code itself, you know, this is what I'm calling. I'm calling the draw function. I'm calling the draw with the another parameter. Okay. This is what is called as a compile time. So method and function, method is same, function is same, routine is same, procedure is same. Okay. They are just the name interchangeably we use. Similarly, class, same thing, entity, same thing, type, same thing. Okay. People use these names interchangeably. Cool. Even method, function, behavior, all are same name. Okay. Now let's talk about another way that we can do a polymorphism, which is called as runtime polymorphism. We want to do a polymorphism at a runtime. Okay, just give me a second. Okay. So let's maybe take this example that you did what? You have a class, okay, and this is say it's a shape. Okay, it's a shape class which has a functionality given to it, public void draw. It does a draw functionality. It has a draw functionality. Okay, and now I would like to use this draw functionality. Okay, I would like to use this draw functionality. So I can have something like a class which is called circle. Again, I'm taking the same example for the understanding. And I would like to draw. Okay, again, I'm extending from this shape. I'm extending from the shape. That means whatever was there with the shape will be there with me as well. Okay, but the way shape is using draw, I don't want to do that. Okay, maybe shape also has something else, right? For example, it also has something like a name. Okay, name is something I would like to use. So name, I can say that I would like to have the name as name property I would like to use, or maybe say some other properties are also there which I want to use, but I don't want to use the draw functionality. I want to override that functionality. Whatever was being given, I want to override that. Okay, like this. For example, just an example, in a real world entity, say your parents has a business. Okay, and that is something which will come to you also, that you will also do the business, but you are like, no, I don't want to do business, I want to do something else. So you will be overriding that functionality. Just an example. Okay, so something like this, if you would like to do, I would like to override this functionality. So I can do something like this, that I will be writing this function again in here. Okay, and here I will give my own functionality. Okay, that is drawing the circle. Okay, now again, different programming languages has different way of overriding. Okay, for example, Java may use something like an override here. Okay, and your C# does it a little different. Okay, we don't want to go to programming specific. What I'm trying to say, there is already a functionality which is being given in a base class, okay, a parent class, but you don't want to use that. You want to extend that functionality by your thing. Okay, so you will be using your implementation. Okay, so both draw exist, but which one which I would like to use? Okay, so if I say I would like to do something like this, okay, I can use like shape, I can say ch, or maybe something like this, super simple. I will say where circle equals to new circle. And now if I try to do this circle dot draw, I will be calling which one? I will be calling this one. In a way, it will be what? It will be overriding the functionality which is being given to the shape, which is being given by the shape. That is a relationship, even though it is a relationship, but I don't want to use that thing. I want to use my own thing. Okay, so you are overriding that behavior. So this is called as runtime overloading. Okay, this is called as runtime overloading. Are you guys clear about the polymorphism? That means one thing can act differently based on the scenario. Polymorphism. Yes and no on the chat. Okay, understood half. Okay. Okay, let me just say this is a draw functionality. Okay, I'll just say draw the basic, or I'll say draw the random shapes. Consider when you have this shape class, which is a parent class, Hitesh, it has a draw function which draw random shape. For example, when you call this shape, it can draw a circle, it can draw a triangle, it can draw something else, right? It can just draw anything. Then you have a more specific class, which is circle. Okay, now if you don't write this code, okay, and if you run this works fine, because there is a draw function which is available on the shape class, and because circle class is extending from the shape class, even circle class has access to this draw function. Okay, but what if circle says that I would like to implement my own implementation? I want to override what you have given to me. I don't want what you have. I want to have my own. Okay, but I still want to have name and other things. All properties what you have that I want, but I don't want draw. In that case, I can override it. Same function, but different implementation. And now when we call the draw function, so instead of calling the shape function draw, it will be calling the circle function draw. So when it will be running at the runtime, this will happen. Okay, why it is runtime? Because in this case, draw is the same function, right? Even the parameters and everything is same. Okay, it will get decided on the runtime that which will run. Okay, it will get decided on the runtime which will run. That is why it is called as a runtime polymorphism. Is it clear, Hitesh? Or do you want me to give some other example? I think this should be clear now. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So with this, we kind of understood most of the things, right? What did we understand? We understand the main principles which we have in the programming language of the OOPS. Okay, once we know this, our life will be a lot more easier. So we know encapsulation, classes, access modifiers, encapsulation. Second thing comes up as what? What was the second thing which you taught? Can you guys put it on the chat? Encapsulation. So if you implement an override over, so if you are overriding, then the subclass one will get executed. Nayan. Okay. So what I was telling, abstraction. Exactly. We talked about abstraction. Okay. The third thing was inheritance. And the last thing was a polymorphism. So once we know all these four principles, we can write a lot better code in the object-oriented programming by using the real-world entities. We can define the interaction among those entities, right? For example, I said the payment, right? Payment is an entity which exists, right? And then we can interact with those payments. We can do multiple things with our programs. Okay, that is the main idea behind your object-oriented programming. Let's talk about the career opportunities. So when you get into the software development or the software engineering field altogether, there are multiple roles which are being available for you guys, right? So either you can be a software developer, okay? And this software developer can be somebody who is only into, say, front-end development. They are mostly working with the UI interfaces and things like that. And then there can be backend developer who are just working with the backend technologies. For example, me, right? I started my career as a backend developer. So I did backend work, okay? Then I moved to this role, which is full stack role. A full stack developer is somebody who does both. Okay, he has an understanding of the backend. Okay, he also has the understanding of the front end. What is front end? The websites which you are seeing. What is the backend? The data from where is coming for these websites, right? That is your backend. Okay, then you can have your game developer. Even there, you are using your programming languages like object-oriented programming languages. Okay. Then you have data scientist role. So data scientists also are using Pythons and other sort of programming language. Again, object-oriented programming is getting applied there also. Why? It is all about the real world, right? Object-oriented programming is all about the real world. Wherever you are interacting with the real world or creating a program for a real world is object-oriented programming. Okay. DevOps engineer also What is a DevOps engineer? Which kind of take care of the infrastructure, for example, servers, right? Doing the deployments, okay? Taking care of the certificate, changing the keys and everything. That is something a DevOps engineer does. Similarly, your QA engineer, even the QA engineer nowadays are more towards the automation, right? Earlier there was a lot of manual testing, but nowadays companies are emphasizing more towards the QA, towards the automation. So even though QA engineer will not be writing a lot of code compared to a software developer, but they still have to write a lot of automation tests, right? Cypress, Selenium, all these things are there. So you need to write the code there also. System architect, once you have all this understanding, you will be able to build, you will be able to get into a system architect role where you will be you'll be creating the architecture, okay? And you'll be creating the applications architecture, and that will get implemented by people, okay? Cloud engineer is more about the cloud, where you have multiple type of clouds which are being available. So a cloud engineer will be using lot of cloud technologies, right? For example, Azure, AWS, GCP, these are multiple cloud which are available. So you use cloud services in order to create a cloud native application, okay? Embedded system developers, they still use C, C++ kind of a programming language, okay? That is something also you could go towards. Let's talk about the interview questions, which mostly are being asked, and we have kind of covered everything in this. And if I read this question, you yourself will know that now you know the answers for it. For example, what is object-oriented programming? Why it is important in software development? We did talk about it. You guys know why it is there, why it is important, right? What are the four main principles? Okay, so if somebody asks you, can you explain encapsulation? Can you explain inheritance, abstraction, polymorphism? Provide the examples. Now you guys have the examples and everything with you, right? What is the difference between a class and an object? You know, class is just an entity, right? It is just a structure. Object is the real instance of it, correct? Bank is just an entity. HDFC Bank is an object of it, right? You can say Kotak Bank is another object, right? SBI is another object, something like that, okay? How do we achieve encapsulation in a class? Why it is important? Encapsulation, access modifiers. Why it is important? Because you don't want everyone to access the content of your class. You want to be very specific about things, what to access, what not to access, okay? You can discuss the concept of inheritance. You guys know what is the inheritance, right? What is the benefit in the OOPS? You are reusing the code, something which has already been there. You are just using it, right? Is a relationship you are building, okay? Real world analogy can be very easy. Your parents and you, right? Animal, dog, all those kind of things you could give. Polymorphism, you know about polymorphism. You know about compile time polymorphism. You know about runtime polymorphism with the examples, right? What is a constructor? We did talk about the constructor, right? It gets called only once. Objects, allocation, and everything, memory happens through the constructor. Why it is important and how they are different from the regular methods. A regular method can return something. A constructor will not return anything. A regular method can be called multiple times. A constructor cannot be called multiple times, right? It will get called only once whenever you are creating an object. And you do not have a control over constructor, okay? You just create a function. Anytime you create an object, only then it will get called. Solid principles, it is a little advanced, okay? So once you know object-oriented principles, maybe someday we will have another masterclass which will be specific on the solid principles. So it is more of an extension towards here, okay? So towards writing a lot better code, we use solid principles, okay? It's essentially an acronym for single responsibility, open close, Lisco substitution, interface segregation, and dependency injection. That's a little advanced topic, okay? You know about abstract class. What are the abstract classes? Abstract classes are the classes which have regular functions and the normal functions. Regular functions plus the abstract function. Abstract function are the function for which we do not give the implementation. Okay, we do not give the implementation. The implementation is being given by the child classes, the derived classes. Okay. What is the role of interface? We talked about, right? We can achieve abstraction by using interfaces. Okay. And that's the conclusion, guys. So you, by this far, you know what is object-oriented programming, why we have it, okay? Why it is important, why it is super important actually, okay? Because any software development role which you'll be looking for will require you to know about the object-oriented programming, okay? So that's the main thing which we need to know. Let's do one thing. Let's try to play a quiz. Let's see if you guys were attentive enough in the session. So what you can do is I'll just start something here, which is called Kahoot. Okay. You guys can just join this. So there's going to be a game pin which will come. So you just need to go to kahoot.com, not the kahoot.com. Yeah, Kahoot. I'll ping you the link of this guy. This thing, you have to go to kahoot.it. I'll just put it on the chat. Just go here and put this game link and you should be able to come in here. And you have to put that pin also. I'll just paste the pin also here. Okay, I've pinned the entire link. You just need to click on it and you should be able to join. What about what guys? You're not interested to join or what? At least try your skills, like see whether the knowledge which you have gained in this session is still with you or not. Okay, people are joining very slowly. How to join? You just need to click on this link. I have pinged the link already. Nayan, you can just come here, click on this link, and it will give you the steps on what to do. You cannot. Oh, I am giving it to the everyone. Let me just put it here. Now everyone should be able to see that link. Okay, so we have few people here. Let's start. What you need to do is you have to just select the correct answer. What is the main advantage of polymorphism in object-oriented programming? Actually, you guys are right. It is actually method overloading. There is some issue in this question, but the answer, the one you have given, is actually right. It allows the method overloading. What inheritance allow in the OOPS? Correct. We have some existing classes. We can extend the behavior. We talked about is there a relationship? Exactly, right? It's a parent-child relationship. Bank, HDFC Bank is a bank. Dog is an animal. Perfect. Let's see. Last one. Which is the principle into a single unit? It's about wrapping the things. Perfect. You guys did get most of the things. And we have Alakhya, Santosh, and who's the winner? Sai. Congratulations to you guys. So you did understand the topics. Okay. And I hope other people also understood it. And that's all what I have for you today, right? And maybe someday we can have another interaction. So that's all. Alma, with the team, I guess you can take.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Neeraj, for this informative presentation on mastering OPS. I'm sure everyone learned a lot about how to apply OPS principles to solve real coding challenges. Now, before going further, I would like everyone to fill this form that have been sent over the chat box. Please do share your feedback to and help us to make this live sessions, more informative and more fun for every one of you. And now I will hand over the session to Manjul, who will be walking you through our program structure. Over to you, Manjul.
Thank you so much, Ranjana, and thank you so much, Neeraj, for this informative session. And I believe all the learners would have got the basic understanding of the fundamental of this topic. Now, I could see in the chat box also, there are like multiple questions that were being asked about is certification required to get into this kind of industry? So my answer would be, it's not only the certification, it's about the platform that you need to have if you want to get into this particular field. Because over the last slides, which Neeraj was showing, I could say that there were like 12 to 15 job roles that were available in the market, right? And which could be, used as an opportunity for all the learners out here to grab a good job role there, right? So, and for that, it's important that you should have those skill sets that are required in these particular industry, that is the software industry, for those 12, 15 job roles that we have. Now, this is the area where Alma Better comes into picture, right? So what Alma Better does is that it not only teaches you things, but it also guides you through all the topics and all the projects and all the FAQs, questions, everything, so that you get that smooth transition from a learner to an earner in this field of software industry. So I'm just sharing my screen, and we will start with the basic question that is mostly asked, and that is, first of all, is what Alma Better is. So look, we are an organization where we are someone who believes in output driven things, right? We will ensure that we are teaching you things in such a way that the transition that you're looking forward to, the transition means from a current position where you are, you can be a student, you can be a fresher, you can be a dropout learner, you can be someone who is from a non-tech field, you can be from a tech field, to get the transition to the software domain. right? You can be a front-end developer, you can be a back-end developer, you can be a full stack developer, you can be a game developer, you can be all of them, right? But it's important that you should have the right guidance, and you should also learn about the right set of curriculum, right? Most of the times we utilize our timings and learning something that is not relevant in this industry, right? That needs to be stopped, right? And second thing that Alma Butter really works towards is that we believe in group learning, right? Every individual topic will have different perspective, every individual problem will have different solutions to it. So it's important for each and every learner to know about it, because the more the number of solutions you will know, the more simple you will make that particular problem. I have seen a lot of students, complexing a particular problem just because they don't have the idea about different solutions that could be done there. That is why we do study in groups. We do ensure that we're doing projects in teams, so that your first peer-to-peer community, you start building it from here only. You might get in touch with people who are from the tech background only. You can take their experience. Some of them are from non-tech background. You can take their experience, their point of view. Some of them are completely freshers. You can take their point of view, and all these things together will help you learning a lot of things, understanding a lot of things from their perspective, and obviously from your perspective as well. And by this, we ensure that you're getting ready for the jobs. Now, a lot of questions come regarding this, that why I should choose Alma Better. Few pointers that I will be giving you, that what are the reasons that you should go ahead with Alma Better. The first and foremost thing, the industry relevant curriculum. Well, we do provide you a program that is of 6 months. After that, we start preparing you for the placements. And this is a placement guarantee program that we offer to our learners, right? And placement could only be guaranteed if whatever you have learned is in the right way or in the right direction, right? And for that, it's important that you should understand the relevant curriculum that is being taught here. There are a lot of irrelevant stuff that are available on different platforms where most of us do waste our time, and then we come up and say Ki, we did not get the job despite having all these kind of information or knowledge that I got from different websites or from different videos, right? So we do ensure that whatever you are learning is relevant currently in this industry, and we will be teaching you things from scratch. So today a lot of coding problems were being done in front of you via Neeraj. Most of you would have understood it. Some of you might not have understood because you don't have that background. So need not to worry. We will ensure that we are teaching everything to you from scratch only. So even if you're from a non-tech background, or even if you have not done coding any time, it becomes easier for you to grasp thing and reach to the advanced level, right? We have like live classes. Obviously interacting with the instructor always boosts your confidence and also encourages you, right? Just like Neeraj took this session for like almost 2 hours now. So he gave a lot of pointers which you can note down. You also got in touch with him. He also kept on asking that, do you guys have any questions that you can ask me, right? So in this way, there is a great communication that sets up between a learner and an instructor, and it only helps you learn a lot of things, right? After that, even if you miss out any of the classes, we do help you with the recorded lectures as well, so that you can revise the things, because obviously whatever you have learned in these 2 hours can't be stored in your brain for a long period of time. You need to revise things. That is why we do ensure that you are revising things by using these recorded lectures, and also a lot of notes are being provided to you. Again, once you have learned about the topic, once you have seen the lectures, it's important that now you should start practicing them, because coding is more like mathematics. The more you practice, the more good you will become at it, right? And we have like 1,000+ coding problems assessments with us. And then again, utilizing those skill sets in real life, for that you have like capstone projects, where we do ensure that you're using all the topics that you have learned in solving that particular project, because project is also like a problem statement that you need to solve, right? We have like daily doubt resolution session. Okay, so even if you're facing any of the difficulty, you can directly go to a live doubt resolution session and can solve your doubt there and then only. And again, we have like 1:1 mentorship sessions as well, so that you keep yourself guided towards this particular program. Learning, understanding, practicing is one part of a course. Getting yourself guided, getting yourself mentored is another type that needs to be merged, needs to be taken into consideration while you're moving ahead, right? Once you're done with this program, we have like 6 months of training program where we teach everything from basic to advanced level. We start preparing you for the interviews, right? You have like 50 plus mock interviews, and we ensure that you're getting prepared for multiple companies that are our hiring partners. We have like 700 plus hiring partners. So we ensure, just like in this particular masterclass, by the end of it, we saw a few of the interview questions that are being asked. We do ensure that you're getting those interview questions so that you do your homework pretty well before going into any of the real interviews. So we help you in mock interviews, we help you in resume formation, we help you in CV formation, we help you in understanding writing mails. We also help you understanding what questions you need to answer, what questions you need to skip, because there are like multiple questions that are being given to you in the interview just to ensure that you do get confused. So how to avoid those questions as well. So we do ensure that we are covering end-to-end topic of all these placement things that we do out here. So these are some of the activities that we do here at Alma Better. Live lectures, already told you, project assignments, we have group discussions, pretty important. We have community participation. We have a lot of guest lectures other than the live lectures that we provide here from people from the very same industry. Then we have like mentorship sessions, capstone projects, and a lot of tests, assignments are being given to you. Now, these are like 700 plus hiring partners that are with us. Some of them are product-based companies, some of them are like private service-based companies, some of them are startups. But we do ensure that we do have companies where you can start thinking about building your career after doing this particular course in a big way, right? Uber is a very huge company, so is Amazon, so is Myntra, so is Novartis, so is PwC. And we do have companies from different sectors also. Some of them are from service-based sector, some of them are from banking, some of them are from finance, some of them are from consultancy, some of them are from pharmaceutical, some of them are from healthcare. So it doesn't matter that if you're from a different background and you wanted to get into the domain of software engineering, we do ensure that you're getting multiple opportunities from multiple sectors to get that particular transition. Now, this is very interesting. This is the salary distribution of the Alma Better graduates, right? These are for the fresher ones. So we do promise that we will end up giving you a minimum CTC of 5 lakhs per annum once you complete this particular program, right? And we do ensure that we're keeping that promise, and also, somehow incrementing in it as well. So like 19% of the students do get a package that is ranging in between 5 to 7 lakhs per annum. What is even more encouraging is that there are like 29% of the students who get a CTC or a package that is ranging in between 7 to 8 lakhs per annum. But our majority of the students, they lie into the category of 8 to 9 lakhs per annum. That means 37% of the students, they ensure that they're getting 8 to 9 lakhs per annum. Now, there are like 15% of the students. Look, it's all about the dedication, the determination, and the amount of hard work that you're doing in this particular module. 15% of the students do get a package that is more than 9 lakhs per annum. And even there are 3% of the students who do get a mighty package of more than 10 lakhs per annum. That means approximately 1 lakh rupees per month, which is in itself a very good start for a fresher if you're starting from here, right? And these numbers, they have people who are from tech background, they have people who are from non-tech background, they have people who are engineers, they have people who are non-engineers as well, right? So again, it's that breakdown that encourages a lot of students that you can always aim higher. If you're working hard, there is a huge opportunity waiting for you outside in this particular domain. These are some of our instructors and mentors, right? As we saw today, Neeraj, he's currently working, with Microsoft. He was with Google as well. And then we have Rachit Jan, who is currently working at BCG. Then we have Sayan, who takes lecture. He's, from Walmart. And then we have people from Apple. We have people from, SAP. So we have people who are from MAN companies. Meta, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google, and also from a lot of product-based companies as well as service-based companies. The reason why I do have instructors from these organizations to give you guys the exposure of those particular topics, right? Because the people who are working in this industry knows the industry well than anyone else. That is why we do not believe in the professor or the teacher's culture. We believe in instructors or practitioner culture, where you get to know about the industry from the ones who are working in that particular industry. Some of the success stories, I will also recommend all of you to do visit our website once and watch out these success stories, that how people from a different background, they got into this particular background of data, or even software. Some of them got into web development, some of them got into the software development part, some of them get into data analyst, some of them are into system engineering part. So people are getting that transition depending upon the amount of hard work and the discipline that they have shown in this particular program that we offer to all of you. Now, a quick student dashboard walkthrough is required here. I'm just showing you what are the things that we provide here at Alma Better. So this is the full stack web development part that we cover here at Alma Better. The best part is that it is now our certification is also in collaboration with IIT Guwahati, again an institute that is in demand of most of the learners, and I believe that if any one of you is from the science background, the importance of IIT, basically, that many of the students do give multiple kind of tests to get into these to this particular institute, and we do ensure that you are getting this certification as well from IIT Guwahati. And then we have Wolf University certification to make this certification look global as well. So it's a 6 months of program that we offer, and we do also ensure that in this particular program we are also teaching you some of the AI tools that are being used in the market currently, right? Because AI is something that is catching up every passing day, and the time will come when they will actually overshadow a lot of the jobs that are there in this domain. So it's important that you should keep yourself updated for this as well. One more thing that I was telling you is that there's no coding experience that is required for this, and it is suitable for final years, graduates, early professionals. We do not take any test if you want to get into this particular program. You just need to ensure that you are committing yourself for the 6 months that we will be teaching you, and we will ensure that you're getting that transition. Like Abhinav Singh Chauhan, he got this transition from a non-coding background to a web development consultant, right? From these particular companies, we do have our instructors, right? From Airbnb, LinkedIn, Google, Microsoft, and Netflix. And these are some of the success stories. Someone who is a fresher from IT graduate got into web development. If someone is a CA, he got into junior developer. A fresher got into software developer. Again, a fresher, he got into system engineer. So you can find out a lot of freshers who are from the tech as well as from the non-tech background. They're getting that particular transition into the software domain just because they give their time and they give their energy in this particular program. So how it all starts? So we start with the foundation track where we tell you about the computer programming part, obviously the JavaScript part. Again, an AI tool is being used here. Then design and analysis of the algorithm is being used here. That is the data structure and the algorithm part, again, with the help of ChatGPT is being told to you. Then we have front-end development, then we have back-end development, and then we get into the practical software engineering where we work upon the UI and the UX part. And obviously then you have like multiple optional subjects also that you can choose and can get more information about that particular topic. It could be cloud computing, it could be distributed system, it could be product management for software engineers as well, right? So this is how the syllabus looks like here at Alma Better, where we cover the front end and the back end part, along with that the data structure algorithm part as well. And obviously once you complete the program, this is how the certification looks like for the Alma Better, right? That you have completed this particular it's just a sample certificate that I'm showing you, but this is how it looks like that you have completed it from our end. Then if you want to go for the IIT certification, this is how it looks like. The Indian Institute of Technology is being mentioned here. Now there is one more important thing that is being mentioned, and that is Electronics and ICT Academy. Now it's an initiative of the government of India, right? So this particular certificate is not only backed by IIT but also by government of India as well, right? And it states that you have done advanced certification in full stack web development part as well. So what you get here at IIT Guwahati, obviously the certification from IIT Guwahati and Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India, and also you get guest lectures from IIT Guwahati. So some of the faculties from IIT Guwahati do come up and they do get certain lectures here. And then we have like 2 days campus immersion at IIT Guwahati. You can also visit IIT Guwahati on your very own cost and can have a good tour along the campus of IIT Guwahati as well. So again, we are starting a fresh batch from next week, and if you guys are interested in taking the Alma Better certification course, you can either opt for just Alma Better certification or also for the IIT Guwahati thing that we have out here at Alma Better. So what are the things that are required? Obviously, you need to be a graduate. If you're a graduate, most welcome to all of you for this particular program. You complete the foundation track, obviously that's 6 months of module that we have here, and then you give a small test, and then we start preparing you for the placement services. Almax is like the placement services that we offer to our learners. So what are the things that we cover here? Obviously the important thing is the business communication thing. That means the grammar and the way you represent yourself in the interview, your body language, the questions that needs to be skipped, the question that needs to be answered, your email writing, your resume building, your CV building, all this is being done in the placement service part that we have here. Then we have like interview preparation and mock interviews as well. And again, since you are also giving a lot of interviews, you have to keep on practicing a lot of things, and that is why we have like coding and the technical revision thing, so that the practice doesn't left behind. Most of the times we complete our topic and we stop practicing things, but again, if those questions are being asked in an interview, we somehow feel like, okay, we just have lost it. But that is not what happens here. We do ensure that the practice keeps on going, and once this is being done, we keep on scheduling interviews for you with the hiring partners that we have, and then you get that package of 5 lakhs per annum or above that, and start your career in this particular field. Again, some of the companies that are with us, that has already been discussed. These are our instructors and the mentors who are there. I've already discussed about why you should enroll in Alma Better courses, because of the curriculum thing and everything being taught to you from scratch. A lot of practice questions, projects, live lectures, recorded lectures, and again, a placement team that will help you in getting the transition that you're looking forward for. So this was the part of the curriculum thing and the things that we cover here at Alma Better. Some of the projects, they are from Zomato, they are from YouTube, they are from Book My Show. So again, you will get projects from these industries. So you will get that exposure that is required in completing this course and also learning things from this particular course. Okay, so this is the tuition fee of the premium program. If you're looking only forward for the Alma Better certification, the program will cost you 30,000. You can get it. You can pay this amount via credit card, debit card, UPI, or also you can go for the EMIs. If you want to go for the Alma Better plus IIT Guwahati certification, you will end up paying 60,000 if you're looking forward for Alma Better, IIT Guwahati, as well as Wolf University. So that your certification looks global, you have to pay 1 lakh rupees out here. The differences are pretty same. Everything is being covered in Alma Better certification, the live lectures, the recorded ones, the interview preparation, capstone projects, all the assignments and the assessments. While in IIT Guwahati, we do ensure that you're getting this IIT Guwahati certificate. Other than that, we also do ensure there are guest lectures from the IIT Guwahati faculties, and you will have a campus immersion as well. If you're looking forward for the Wolf University part, you will get this certification from Wolf University, which is a European institute, and your entire certification will become valid in over 60 countries, 60 plus countries. This entire certification will get validated. So these are some of the questions and the answers that are being frequently asked. Now, getting back to the questions, if you guys have anything that you want me to answer, I would be more than happy to answer them. It will be received via mail, the participation certification. The highest package that is offered at software development is 33 lakhs per annum, Bhushan. You will get 6 months of time to complete the program, Sayandeep. I'm still expecting a lot of questions from the learners out here, if you have, regarding the admission part. So again, we are starting a fresh batch from next week, from Friday. So if you guys are interested for getting yourself into the web development part, you guys can directly go to the website and can enroll yourself. I will also request Team Alma Better to drop down the coupon code that will be valid for next 24 hours, so that they can, so that the learners can get a certain discount over the current pricing that we have here at Alma Better. All right, I can't see much of the questions coming up from the end of the learners. So you can just use this coupon code LEARN15 and can get 15% discount over the current prices that we are offering. at the certification level, you can just pay this particular, use this coupon code, pay the amount, and can start learning. All right. And before we finish up this session, I would again request all of you to kindly fill this feedback form. It helps us only to improve ourselves, to bring you more and more lectures and the master classes which are currently relevant in this industry, just to keep that curiosity alive in all of you. All right, I think I'm not getting a lot of questions from here. Most of the things are being clarified here. So Ranjana and team Alma Better, I believe that we can just end up this session. Thank you so much, all of you, for turning up, all the learners. And again, I will request you that if you have any of your friends, relatives who are looking forward to get a transition in the data domain or in the software domain, do bring them in these sessions. We do ensure that we are giving you understanding about the fundamental or the basic of these two domain. You will get more clarification of why you should go ahead in these particular programs and in this particular domain. So thank you so much for joining today's masterclass, all of you, right? And if you have anything to say, Ranjana, we can wrap up this for now. Is that from my end for this session?
Thank you, Manju. Thank you. So guys, we will be signing off. If you still have any query, feel free to reach out. And thank you so much for attending this insightful master class. I hope you had a very good learning experience. Thank you.